Okay, class. Today we went over how to solve systems of equations, but when you have three variables, so you have three equations instead of just two. And so I set up our notes a little bit so that you can start kind of seeing the different steps that we're going to take. The first step you want to take is out of the three equations, you want to just take two. So we're going to narrow it down to just two of the equations to start with. From those two, I want you to eliminate one of the variables, and you can pick whichever one you want. So in this example, I'm going to pick the first equation and the second equation. And so I labeled that as A, like step A. And so those are the two equations I'm going to work with. I also said that I'm going to start eliminating Y. So Y is going to be the one that I wanted to eliminate because it looked easier for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite the first equation as just 2x minus 6y plus 9z equals a negative 8. And I want to eliminate y. So the second equation, I have a plus y, but I need it to be a plus 6y. That way my y's will eliminate. So I'm going to take this second equation, I'm going to multiply everything by 6. And that way I can eliminate those y's. So if I do 6 times 5x, I'll get 30x. And then if I do 6 times y, I'll get a plus 6y. And then 6 times 2z will give me a 12z. And then 10 times 6 will give me a 60. And so from here, I'm going to eliminate the y. And so we see that the y values are completely opposite, and so those will cancel out. And then I'm going to just combine like terms down. So I have 2x plus a 30x, so that gives me 32x. The y's are now gone. And then I have a positive 9z and a 12z, and they're both positive. So I'm going to get a 21z. And then I have a positive 60, but then I have a negative 8. So it's going to be 60 minus 8. So that'll equal 52. I want to save this equation. So that part is going to be saved until we get to step C. And so we're just going to save that in yellow right now because yellow is step C. All right, we're going to move to step B. So step B says take two different equations. So you're obviously going to take one of them that you've used, but then you have to take a different one. So it's like a new pair of equations. And so for me, I chose the first equation and the last equation. So equation 1 and equation 3. And again, I did that because if you look at the y values, I can multiply the entire third equation by 6 to get opposite y's. The trick is, since I eliminated y in the purple step, I have to eliminate y in the blue step. So whatever you eliminate in A, you have to eliminate the same variable in B. Otherwise, this won't work. And so I'm going to eliminate y. And so I'm going to rewrite the first equation because I'm going to reuse that. So 2x minus 6y plus 9z equals negative 8. And then I'm going to use the third equation, but remember I'm going to take that third equation and I'm going to multiply everything by 6 again. And that's so that I can get that y gone. So I'm going to have 3x times 6, that gives me an 18x. I'm going to have a y times a 6, that gives me that positive 6y that I wanted. I'm going to have a negative 8, so negative 8 times 6 gives me a negative 48, and that's z. And then I have a negative 28 times 6, so that gives me a negative 168. Okay, and so from there, that gets me to eliminate the y values again. So my y values will get eliminated because I have a negative 6y and a positive 6y. And so then now I just combined down the rest of them. And so I get 18x plus 2x. So I get 20x. And then I have a negative 48 and a positive 9. So it's going to give me a negative 39z. And then I have a negative 8 and a negative 168. So I'm going to combine those and I'll get a negative 176. And so this is my other equation that's going to go to step C. Okay, so step C now says, let's take the highlighted equations from step A and B, and we're going to eliminate another variable. So if you notice, those two yellow boxes only have two variables. And so that's now set up kind of how we're used to doing it, where I can now eliminate a variable out of those two. So if I rewrite the two that I just got, I have 32x plus 21z equals 52. And then I have a 20x minus 39z equals negative 176. And so now I want to eliminate a variable, either the x or the z. It's up to you. Now remember, we talked about in order to do that, they have to be opposite. And these numbers are kind of wonky. And so you can either take the top row and multiply everything by 20, and then take the bottom row and multiply everything by 32, because then that would give you a common factor of 32 times 20, which is the 640x. And then one of those would need to be negative. And so it would cancel out. But those numbers are really big. And so one of my periods talked about, well, what about division? And since multiplication and division are allowed in both of these, I'm okay with division if you see something that you can divide easily. Now, what I want to say about division is be careful. So if you end up with decimals, my suggestion is to either leave it in fraction form or do not round the decimals until the very, very end of the problem. And the reason for that is if you round them at the beginning, then your answer is probably not going to be precise. And so you might not get the right answer. Let's try a division just because we haven't done it before. And so I noticed that I can get 4 out of 32 and I can get 4 out of 20. And so I'm going to do that so that I get, and one of them needs to be negative. So in order to get 4 out of this top one, I would have to divide everything by 8. So in this case, I'm going to divide everything by 8. Okay? And then in the other one, in order to get 4, I would need to divide everything by 5. But I'm going to do a negative 5 because I want one of them to be opposite. So I'm going to divide everything by a negative 5. Okay? Again, if you don't like the division, you can still do the way we'd been doing before where you can multiply. It'll just be really big numbers. Okay? And so now I'm going to rewrite these two after my division. Okay? So I have 32 divided by 8. That gives me that 4x I was looking for. And then I have 21 divided by 8. I do get a decimal there, and so I need to be careful. It's going to be a plus 2.625z, and I'm not going to round it because if I round it, it might mess up my answer. And then I have 52 divided by 8, and that's 6.5. Okay. And that wasn't rounded, that's just how it came out. And so then the second one, I'm dividing everything by a negative 5. And so, okay, so the second one, we're going to divide everything by a negative 5. So we're going to have 20 divided by negative 5. And so that gives me that negative 4x I was looking for. And so that's the one that I'll be eliminating. And then I have a negative 39 divided by a negative 5. So it'll be a positive 7.8z. And then the final one is a negative 176 divided by a negative 5. And that gives me a positive 35.2. Okay, so now I can go down and we'll see here that my x's will in fact eliminate. Okay, and now I can combine down. And so I have 2.625z plus 7.8z. That gives me a 10.425z. Okay? And then that equals, we have a 6.5 positive plus a 35.2 positive. That gives me 41.7. I'm going to divide both sides by that 10.425. And so because I didn't round anything, it actually came out to be a perfect 4. So if you do a 41.7 and you divide it by 10.425, you'll see that it's 4. And so we found out that z is 4. Okay, so we found one variable. We still need to find x and y. And so we know z is 4. And so you want to take that and you want to plug it in to one of the yellow equations, because the yellow equations have only two variables. It has an x and a z. And since I have z now, I can find x really easily. And so if I just take this z and plug it in here, I can find x. So that's what I'm going to do next, okay? So I have 20x minus 39, and then instead of z, I'm going to use 4. And then that equals a negative 176. And so now I can solve. I have 20x with a negative 39 times 4. It's going to give me a negative 156. And so if I add 156 to both sides, I have a negative 176 plus 156. And so I'm going to get a negative 20. So 20x equals a negative 20. And so x equals negative 1. And so I've now solved for x and z. The last step is to plug those two variables back into one of your originals to get y. And so I'm going to use the middle one. It doesn't matter which one, but I'm going to use the middle one. And so I'll just do it down here. So the middle one is 5x, but now I know x is negative 1. So I'm going to substitute that in. Plus y, I don't know y yet, plus 2 times z, z is 4, and that equals 10. And so I get negative 10 plus y plus 8 equals 10. And so over here, I can combine like terms. I have a positive 8 and a negative 10. That gives me a negative 2 plus y equals 10. And if I add that to, I am so sorry. I'm going to go back. I don't know why I put negative 10 here. I'm so sorry. So this is a negative 5. I knew it wasn't right. So negative 5 plus y plus 8 equals 10. And so we have a negative 5 and an 8. That'll give me a positive 3. So a positive 3 plus y equals 10. I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. And so y equals 7. And so now I have all three variables. The way that we write the answer is we say parentheses x, so the x is -1, comma y, y is 7, comma z. So it's x, y, z. And so my final answer is -174. Okay, I know it's a lot of steps, but if you follow the steps, you'll be able to start plugging them in. Thank you.